Go back now to our top story, the Constitutional Court ruling in favour of Labour tenant farmers who fought for their claims to be processed by a special master instead of the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform. Let's speak now to Attorney Rob McCarthy. Rob, a very good evening to you and thanks for your time. What does this ruling actually mean? What does this victory actually mean for Labour tenant farmers?
Good evening, Mbeka. I think the biggest problem that is facing land reform in this country is the inability to get the claims processed, regardless of whether or not they are valid. And this particular judgment means that the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform is going to get assistance in order to process their claims and guidance in that regard.
Rob, what would have happened if this stayed with the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform? What would have been the scenario for these Labour tenant farmers?
Well, we're involved in 1,650 claims where we represent landowners. And I have seen the department neglect to process these claims on behalf of Labour tenants, which is exactly what's happened in 20 years down the line. You have very frustrated Labour tenants whose claims have not been processed, and in fact a lot of the Labour tenant claimants themselves have passed away.
So give us some idea, I mean, for those who are not familiar with what this fight is all about, where it actually began. When we talk about these claims, what exactly are we talking about? Who are these Labour tenant farmers and what are they asking for?
A Labour tenant farmer is a person who resided on the landowner's property. He had the right to use land which was allocated to him by the landowner in return for him providing labour to the landowner for an agreed period of time. Normally it was 6 months of the year he worked for the landowner for little or no compensation, and then was allowed to run his own farm effectively on the landowner's property.
Okay, so the court appointing a special master to have to actually deal with this. Do you see this now actually, relieving the backlog that has been experienced? And what can be done for those who didn't get justice in the 22 years?
Well, I think the first thing they need to do is see whether or not they can get the information that they had back in 2003 in order to find the people who were previously involved in the claims. These were the Section 17 notices. And as far as getting the department to get into the program, so to say, I think the department has got to get the right people employed who are going to work with master. And I think the master is going to have to make sure that those people do their jobs, and that is going to be a considerable task.
All right, thanks very much for that insight, Attorney Rob McCarthy there, just giving us some insight into this judgment on Labour tenant farmers who are fighting for their claims to be processed by a special master. Well, let's